Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 150. Yes, we are up to 150 episodes, and for that I have a new space for just this episode. Sorry about that, but yeah, let's go into our comics. We have about 23 comics, and we go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week. So let's get started. Number 23 is Poison Ivy, Cycle of Life and Death. This is the last issue of the mini-series, and I loved Poison Ivy up to a point, and then it started getting really weird. And it ends kind of weird. It still ends with these baby teen plants thing. So I think it had a lot of potential in the end. I like the friendships that Poison Ivy made, but I definitely liked the beginning of the series more than I did the end and the middle of it. So I gave Poison Ivy Cycle of Life and Death 2.5 stars, and that is number 23. I want to make sure that's number 23. Let's see. Yes, alright, so moving on to number 22, which is Civil War II X-Men issue 1. So this is a book I was disappointed with. I was disappointed with Amazing Spider-Man last week and now X-Men this week. It just wasn't needed. Just kind of like the Amazing Spider-Man one. It doesn't really add too much character-wise, which you would like with these tie-ins, because you know it's not going to add too much plot-wise, because that's going to be the main title. But for the miniseries, you want to just have a fun story, fun character story, and it kind of does this here. But I think the main problem is the X-Men in general has been kind of blah since All New, All Different. And they don't really act as a team, and they keep going to event that you don't really see them have their chemistry like they used to. So that is, I think, the biggest drawback of this series, is that there are these character interactions, but you don't really care that there's a crossover, because all these series really haven't dealt with their own team interiorly, right? That's not a word. But, so I think that's the biggest problem. So Civil War II X-Men issue 1 gets 2.5 stars. It is number 22. Moving on to number 21, which is Justice League issue 51. It wasn't a bad book. It just kind of wasn't a needed book. It's very much a filler of Dick Grayson. This is like 6 months after New 52 started. So it was like 5 years ago, but a 6-month future, I guess we call it flashback, flash forward weirdness. But we get to see Robin. We get to see Dick Grayson as Robin. And he is just teaming up with the Justice League. And it's going to go into Titans Rebirth, it seems like, whatever this villain is. Which, I mean, we've seen hints of this villain throughout Titans Hunt. So if you read Titans Hunt, I don't think it's necessary you need to read this book. And it gets a little confusing with the timeline, because DC Rebirth is about like, oh, we have to gain our memory of the past, but here's this 5-year gap that Dick Grayson turned into like a 12-year-old into a 20-year-old very quickly as Nightwing. So at least he kind of looks 12, or I guess maybe he looks 15 in the artwork. Artwork was actually pretty good. It's just getting a very confusing timeline, and that was definitely the reason why I don't think this is totally worth picking up. So Justice League issue 51 gets 2.5 stars. And that is number 21. Alright, moving on to number 20, which is Black Widow issue 4. Black Widow is such a weird series for me, because I like the tone of it. I love this like spy espionage thing going on. I think the artwork of Samney and the writing of Wade obviously is a great creative team. We saw that with Daredevil, and I think they work really well with Black Widow also. But the actual story of the Red Room and that type of stuff, I'm not totally interested in. So yeah, I gave this 3 stars. It's not a bad story. It's just like the plot is just not as interesting to me as the actual visuals. And that gives me how long is this going to be on my pull list because of that. I want to see where the art goes. I mean, it was interesting, just hasn't completely pulled me in. So that is number 20, and I gave that 3 stars. Moving on to number 19, which is International Iron Man issue 4. In this book, I actually been liking International Iron Man more than I've seen other people have, especially my frontline friends I know have not been enjoying International Iron Man as much. But yeah, this issue, I kind of see where everyone's coming with this one. Even though I'm very interested in this dynamic between his old love interest with an eye patch, and and Tony. I like that. It just feels very much in a standstill, especially because this is Civil War II tie-in. It's supposed to be a very important title for Iron Man, but it doesn't really seem that important to Civil War II, which is Iron Man and Ulysses and Inhumans. This has nothing really to do with that. It has to do with his adopted parents. And just because Iron Man's in this book, it does not mean it's a Civil War II tie-in. So that's very misleading, in my opinion. But yeah, it's very much a standstill. Nothing really happens. It's just the same talk of like, who's my adopted parents? It's kind of the same question. Even the flashbacks, it's the same thing happening. So I gave it 3 stars. Still like the art. There were some good character moments, but the plot really does not progress in this issue. So that was number 19. Moving on to number 18, which is Spidey issue 7, which I'm having a fun time with. Probably going to move digitally though, just because it kind of is always the same thing, but I like going back to the roots of Spider-Man. That's really enjoyable. I enjoy that. And if you like Black Panther, you probably have a good time. If you've seen the Civil War movie, you'll definitely have a good time with this, with the Black Panther and Spider-Man team up. That Black Panther's powers are kind of similar to Spider-Man, so that was interesting. But I think a big downfall is the change of artwork. It's just very plain to me. I'm going to show you the same page. It's very plain artwork. Same for the Peter artwork. Everything kind of looks smaller, I guess. I just don't like the art style that much. Facial expressions could be better. But I liked probably the Peter Parker stuff the most in this issue. The Spider-Man stuff were getting a little repetitive, but it's also the lesson he learns as Spider-Man and how he utilizes it as Peter and starts becoming friends with Flash and starts being an even better person because of it. So I liked the issue. It just didn't blow me away. And again, the artwork does take away from it. So I gave it 3 stars. I'll still continue to read it, but like I said, probably digitally after this issue. All right, I think that was number 18. That was number 18. Moving on to number 17, which is Batman issue 1. So Batman, for some reason I haven't been able to get into this new Batman as much as I want to, because the last issue was 3.5 stars, not too bad. This was 3. And that's mostly because it's a very slow issue. It's more action issue. It's Batman literally saving a plane, which was cool. It was really cool. But to read a whole issue about that, it's a little slow. And also I expected to learn a little bit more about these, I think they call themselves the Gotham Knights. Yeah, Gotham Girl. He's Gotham. He's just Gotham, and she's Gotham Girl. And I'm curious about these characters. Tom King's going to go a little bit more in depth in who they are, but the cliffhanger was, you knew it was coming, but yeah, I am interested to see where it goes. I gave it 3 stars. Still an interesting issue, but expected more with it. So Batman issue 1 gets 3 stars. That is number 17. Now we are moving on to number 16, which is Superman issue 1. And yeah, Superman, we have this issue that has a little bit more to do with Jonathan and Lois and really just the whole family aspect, which is nice because Action Comics is more like, let's get Lex Luthor, I'm Superman. Action Comics, let's deal with the family a bit more, which makes sense for this title because it always dealt with the family a bit more and the supporting characters. So I like this issue. I think the art kind of took me off. It's very anime, exaggerates the eyes a bit. So I wasn't a huge fan of the artwork. I don't really know why. I just maybe expected something else, but I could totally see getting used to this. But what I liked the most was definitely Jonathan's story of him developing his powers and not knowing how to control them, killing his cat. That broke my heart. I was so upset with that. And then having this girl watch that he has powers, which I'm really curious who this girl is going to be. And again, a big important part of Superman is the supporting characters. So to see Jonathan have his own supporting character now could be interesting. This could maybe be a Lana Lang type character for him. So I liked the issue, but again, the artwork did take me away a little bit from the issue, and then the ending was kind of weird with the Justice League thing, but overall I liked the issue, so I'm going to give Superman issue 1 3 stars. I think that was number 16. Alright, that was number 16. We are moving on to number 15, which is Hellchild, issue 4, which is a Patch book. We have one more issue after this, see how Hellchild ends. And Sorry if you're hearing a phone in the background. The person's gonna put on silent. Anyways, we're gonna go to Hellchild issue 4, which is cover D. Awesome. This is actually the first time I usually get it printed, but I get it like a week after, so the first time I'm reviewing it printed. But Hellchild's, it's a little slow because, again, it is an origin story, but I am liking her personality. I'm liking her motives, and I like the idea that she's turning into her father and she doesn't want to. I thought that was an interesting thing, and if you like Marion, she has a good part in this issue, feeling guilty of turning Hellchild into who she is. But yeah, it was a good penultimate issue leading into our last issue, and we'll see really the full conclusion of Hellchild's origin story, because that's really what it is just kind of learning more about her. But it's definitely more focused on the other characters like Van Helsing, and Marion, and whatever the father's name is. So yeah, Hellchild issue 4 gets 3.5 stars. We're moving on to number 14, which is Green Arrow, issue 1. Glad to see this kind of in the middle of the pile. I like this issue. It was cool to see a little bit more of Dinah and Green Arrow. I love the artwork. I like this lighter art, which we have not seen for Green Arrow in a long time. I thought it was a little weird that Dinah got so angry at Oliver quickly about money again after they literally just, had a fun night with each other. So I thought that was a little weird, a little out of character, I would say, that quick of a dime that happened. I kind of wish there was more build up to that, even though there was conversation of it in the previous issue. But I do like, again, the political aspect of that and, talking about the social aspect. I enjoyed that. The villain could be a little bit better, as I've said, but again, the best part is definitely Dinah and Ollie, and then you have a nice cliffhanger with his sister and Miko, and Shadow, who's her mother. So is Oliver's sister bad? Is she good? I like that as a cliffhanger. So Green Arrow issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. All right, moving on to number 13, which is one of my favorite indie titles, The Beauty, issue 8, which is kind of in this weird one-shot every issue thing for the second arc. So the first arc focused on two police officers who had the beauty, and they're figuring out, all right, well, how do we destroy the beauty? How do we get rid of this disease that everyone loves but is destroying people? So now you're seeing individual people have the beauty. So this actually has to do with a transgender woman, which I thought was really interesting to go into again, diversity and the LGBT community, which is great. And I liked it. I thought it was interesting. The artwork is gritty, but I thought it worked for the style of story they're trying to tell. But again, it is this one-shot story, so that's why it's a little harder to put up, because, like, all right, where is this beauty going? And, like, what are you going to do with these characters? Are we only going to see them once? So that's kind of the frustrating part of this arc, but I definitely was attached to the story, and I think it's something different, and it's another facet of the beauty that we haven't really seen in that first arc. So I gave that 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 12, which is a series I've been also really enjoying, which is Joyride issue 3. And this issue was really interesting in the last half. First half is like, oh, we're on a mission, we're all happy. And then we have our two main female characters who are drawn into this planet, and like these tentacles go on top of them, and you see them learn about each other. And we see that girl who was the pilot, not the pilot, but like the soldier who just went on this trip randomly, who was very much a dedicated soldier, has a past. She's not, normal. And, she has to put like contacts in her eyes. She has like white hair. So we don't know much about the world. So you don't know exactly what that's all about. But she's also the daughter of the person who killed our main character's mother. That's the part I love. Now, I will say you have to read it a couple times, though, to really get the whole story, because it's all in flashes. But I'm not saying that's a good thing or bad thing, you know? It's good to go back and figure something else out about the story. So I love those two characters. The other, you know, the guy and the little alien character, I thought their dialogue could have been a little bit better. But I liked it. I you know, definitely drew me in by, again, the second half of the issues. So I gave it 3.5 stars. And I think we have like 1 or 2 more issues left of this mini-series. Alright, so moving on to number 11, which is Nova, issue 8. Yeah, this is interesting because it definitely is a Civil War II tie-in. It's a different point of view of that party that we saw in issue 1 of Civil War II. So, and I love the art. I thought the artwork was really well done. It's Nova trying to find his place, trying to find his place in the Avengers and just being a hero, and his mother not wanting him to be a hero anymore. She's worried. She's worried about him, and I thought this was going to have to do with the father, but I guess they're dealing with that all new, all different. And then the end has kind of a weak ending with Mole Man. I'm like, oh, okay, that was kind of random, but okay. But yeah, I love Sam and his mother's relationship. I think it's definitely the best part of the series, and of Sam Alexander's character. Love their dynamic, and it really shines here. I'm not going to say this is a necessary issue, but if you like Sam Alexander, you want to see his personality shine through Civil War II, it's definitely a good tie-in to Civil War II, which I haven't said a lot about with these titles. So I gave Nova issue 8 3.5 stars. And again, if you want more of the father, it looks like that's going to be an all-new, all-different instead of Nova, which is kind of weird because this whole series has been about his father. You would think it would be in that title. Alright, so now we're moving on to number 10. Which actually the main Civil War II title, which is Civil War II, issue 2. Still really surprised with this event. This issue was not as good as issue 1, but I'm liking it. I'm liking it so far. Now this is a little bit slower, like I said. It's definitely more of the aftermath of Tony having a nervous breakdown after his friend died, and just sending Ulysses all over the place. But the main big event that happens is Ulysses having a vision of Bruce Banner destroying the world. And now the team has to decide, do we go on, you know, with these visions since we did last time? Jen is in the hospital and War Machine's dead. Now, Captain Marvel might make the same mistake because she goes up to Bruce and says, hey, I need to talk. Now, I will say what I love also about this series so far is the artwork by Dave Marquez is just gorgeous. I miss it so much in Iron Man. Iron Man has not been the same since he left the series. And also, I think Brian Michael Bendis has just been focusing more on Civil War II instead of Invincible Iron Man, which I'm a little upset about that too. But yeah, I gave the issue 3.5 stars. Again, it wasn't as good as the first issue, but still a good issue, and hopefully for a good event, which I haven't said that for a long time for Marvel. Alright, so number 9, really happy to see this book a little higher than usual, and that is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 14. So this issue, again, goes back to its roots. Whenever Amazing Spider-Man goes back to its roots, it really is usually higher for me. Here we get to see Mary Jane interact with Peter, and Tony's noticing, hey, what's going on? You guys know each other? Or interacting with Spider-Man, because they interact with both Spider-Man and Peter in this issue. And Tony's starting to get a little curious here, and there's a lot of moments where you're like, oh, is One More Day gonna unravel? Is this not, you know, is Mary Jane and Peter gonna be back together one of these days? Maybe because we have more hope in the air because of DC Rebirth, but I don't know. But yeah, it seems like it might, because as people start learning a little bit more about Mary Jane and Peter and they're interacting more, it seems like some of the things are unraveling, like Aunt May's starting to get sick. Now that's the whole point One More Day happens, because Aunt May was shot and she was gonna die, and Peter was like, no, not Aunt May. And that's what happened with the whole marriage between Mary Jane and Peter. So it'd be interesting if it does unravel. Again, I'm not getting my hopes up, because once you get your hopes up, it usually doesn't happen. They love to tease you. But I like this issue. I liked Harry. I enjoyed Mary Jane and Peter's interaction. I like Tony in this issue. And I'm also enjoying Regent as a villain so far. So I thought this was a very solid issue with some interesting little clues here and there. So I give Amazing Spider-Man issue 14 4 stars. No, it was a very solid issue. I was very happy with the issue. Hopefully, next issue is even better because we had the Iron Spider Mary Jane, which I'm excited about. All right, moving on to number 8, which is Titans Rebirth, issue 1. Another very solid issue. I enjoyed this. See, it's a Rebirth issue, so what you need is a good transition. It doesn't have to set up the first issue, but it has to tell you who these characters are in an interesting way for people who do know who these characters are, and also people who don't. And I think they did that in Titans Rebirth. While he's back, he brings the memories back to his friends, and they're, learning about their past again, and that's really been a prime thing for DC Rebirth also. So Titans Rebirth issue 1 gets 4 stars for me. Thought it was a very solid issue. That's number 8. Number 7 is Star Wars Han Solo issue 1. Very surprised at this issue because I haven't been loving the Star Wars titles as of recent. They've been a little bit weaker, but very happy to see Han Solo kind of going back to basics. I love the Princess Leia and Han Solo interaction. That was great. Definitely the highlight. But it's also Han Solo going on this race, and it's like this deadly race of people shooting at each other, and this is all for a mission for the rebels, and Han Solo deciding, like, am I really part of the rebels, am I not, like, what place am I in right now? So artwork was also gorgeous. Same artist that usually does the cover art for all these titles, so really like it. So Star Wars Han Solo issue 1 gets 4 stars. Moving on to number 6, which is Invincible issue 129. With this issue, we definitely get more of Eve and Mark. Mark finding out who Eve was in a relationship with when he was gone. And how Adam Eve has a little bit more anger in this issue. Loved how she really utilized her powers, because we haven't seen that in a really long time, because she was pregnant and she couldn't use her powers for a long time. And then, you had all the drama and them trying to live a normal life. So it's cool to see Adam Eve, like, as her, like, a mommy superhero, So I like that. Artwork is the same as Cory Walker still doing it. So it's, it's getting better, but still, as I say, I like Ryan Ottley's artwork a little bit better for this series. And yeah, there's definitely that the war, I think, building up with Robot, which has been, building up for so many issues. And then the biggest thing is the person who raped Mark having a child that looks exactly like Mark. So Mark might have another child. And, his life is starting to get straight, trying to have his family because he lost so much time, and here, there's just another drama and more twist to it. So Mark definitely never has a normal life, and it is definitely a strong ending, and that's another reason why Adam Eve got angry when she saw that person. So I thought it was a very powerful issue, and I gave it 4 stars. Very solid, and it's definitely interesting where they're going with it. Now, I have a feeling they'll be in Earth sooner than later. Alright, now we're moving on to top 5. Number 5 is Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, issue 7. I'm glad to see this in my top 5. It hasn't been there in a while because I feel like this arc is taking a little longer than I expected with Hetty and the whole entire Patsy Walker comic book arc going on. But it ends here, and it ends with Jessica Jones, which is great because if you don't know, Trish from the Jessica Jones TV show is actually Patsy from this comic. But in the comic, they really never knew each other, so it's cool that you get to see this friendship building. If you miss Jessica, because you don't really see much of Jessica in the Marvel comics, surprisingly enough, even though she has a hit television show on Netflix, Marvel just never knows what to do with families, so which is sad, because Jessica and Power Man and, Luke Cage and Daniela are such a great trio. I love them, and I love seeing more of them, and I think that's why I really enjoyed this issue. But it's Jessica being a detective again. It's Hetty and Patsy having this frenemy thing. Kind of wish Hetty had some more redeeming qualities, because in the 2000 miniseries, she was actually friends with Patsy and knew all about this Hellcat stuff. And in this issue, she knew about Patsy being Hellcat also. But yeah, I liked it overall, how they ended this whole arc. And I'm glad they ended this arc. And now Civil War 2, I think it might get a little darker because of what happened to Jen. So next issue is a tie-in, and Jen is Patsy's best friend. So very curious, because you see in this series they can go dark, but they usually only do for a panel or two. So can they go dark for a whole issue? I don't know, and I'm curious about that next issue. So Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat, issue 7, gets 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Green Lanterns, issue 1. Yes, this is my favorite DC Rebirth title from this week. I'm really enjoying it. It's one of my favorite DC Rebirth titles so far. I like that we get to see a little bit of Jessica and Simon separate from each other, but it's also them learning how to work with each other. Really interesting story with the Red Lanterns possessing people. Simon getting visions. Does this have to do with the Red Lanterns? But yeah, the most interesting part for me is those small stories with Jessica trying to relate to her sister. And her sister is like, yeah, you're a Green Lantern, who cares? But Jessica in her monologue saying she does. Our family's just really good at avoidance. So there's a lot of interesting interpersonal relationships going on in this series between Simon and Jessica, Jessica and her sister, Simon and his family. And that's what I love about Sam Humphrey's writing, that he also does similarly to Star-Lord, that he also writes. So Green Lanterns issue 1, very solid issue, very good start to a series I could definitely see loving in the future. That's number 4. Moving on to number 3, really happy to see this series back on top, which is Injustice Gods Among Us, Year 5. Now, I always say that the series is at its best when it focuses on characters, because the plot has been done. Or we know the plot, at least. It's Superman versus Batman. And them having this war. And since this is a prequel, it has to do before the video game, you know how it ends. So to focus on the plot and focus on Superman versus Batman gets a little tiresome. We've seen it. We've been reading this for a long time. But with this issue, it focuses on the supporting characters, where I think it's at its best, like I said. And it's the death of Alfred. It's the death of Alfred, and it opens up with Bruce saying happy birthday to Alfred, saying, oh, it's one mystery I'll never know. It's how you know, what your birthday is, how old you are. And Alfred's like, you'll never find out. And it's, even though a lot of these back characters are on different teams, Damian's teaming up with Superman. Damian comes to the cave, really excited to celebrate Alfred's birthday. He's killed. He's stabbed. And this is interesting because you saw what happened with Superman when Lois died. That was the point of this whole entire Injustice Gods Among Us. And now you're seeing, will Bruce cross the line? Superman has. Will Bruce do it after losing pretty much his father? It was a very strong issue. Beautiful artwork. I gave it 4 stars. Just very, very strong issue. Injustice Gods Among Us, Year 5, Issue 12 gets 4 stars. That is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is the Astonishing Ant Man, Issue 9. This is a really interesting issue because I've been really enjoying Astonishing Ant Man as of these last couple of months, especially figuring out everything with Cassie. It's been getting really interesting. This is pretty much a breakout. Trying to get Cassie. And Cassie, you know, being her own type of hero, she's trying to fight her own battles with Darren Cross, who stole her heart. And it's fun because it's just a heist. It's an Ocean 11 type issue, and they poke fun at that. But then there's an interesting twist of how we find out that Scott goes to jail. Is that he tries to play the hero for his daughter, and, you know, it seemed like she was able to protect herself, and he's the one who gets caught. So the beginning of the issue is like, I told you we're trying to break someone out. I just didn't tell you it was me. So I'm really curious to see what Cassie's going to do of this, because it's obvious that these two have, you know, had a shaky relationship in the past couple of months, but they love each other. They'll do anything for each other. So it's that moment where you just see in the dialogue where Cassie's like, oh my god, my dad, you know, even though I've been pissed off, I'm going to do anything to save him. So I'm really curious to see where these next issues go, what Cassie's going to do to react to this. And yeah, even the more of the Darren Cross story. I enjoyed the Superior Spider-Man supporting cast here. Superior Foes of Spider-Man supporting cast. Even seeing more of Miss Thing. It's been a while, and her being in action and supporting Scott, even though you don't really know what her motives are. You never know anyone's motives in this story, which is also fun. But I thought it was a very solid issue, again, with an interesting twist. And I've been really enjoying Astonishing Ant Man. So that is number 2, and I give that 4 stars. Moving on to number 1, a book I loved, which was Spider-Gwen issue 9. This is my pick of the week this week. I gave it 5 stars, actually. I just loved it. I'm a big sucker for identity reveal, and it looks like we got that here. It was more about the Mary Janes, and Punisher comes to try to fight Gwen, and she uses one of her last power-ups, and she goes all Spider-Gwen on them in her own Gwen Stacy appeal. And Mary Jane sees it, and she's just running off and says, I want to be a hero. This whole issue is her debating, should I be a hero? It's Spider-Man No More, but done in a really unique way, and a new way. Which I love about a lot of these Spider-Man titles. They're able to pretty much do Spider-Man No More in unique ways, but especially Spider-Gwen. What does she do without powers? And is she still going to be a hero? Is she gonna run to try to find her powers? And it's also that, her inner monologue about guilt and in her past. And yeah, I really enjoyed the Mary Janes. I especially loved Mary Jane in this issue because I feel like she's kind of been a little bitchy throughout this whole entire run of Spider-Gwen, because that's her type of character in this universe. But here you see Gwen and Mary Jane. They're just playing video games while the Mary Janes are hunting on why can't I think of the name, on the dating app. And so we get to see Mary Jane just like give good advice to Gwen, and in a way that was very Mary Jane-like, which again is finally seeing some of 616 Mary Jane in this character, because really it's the first time we actually really saw Mary Jane as a whole, because she's been very much as part of the band and being a singer. So it's great just to see the Mary Janes in general. So overall, I love this issue. I gave 5 stars. Really good character study, or just character issue for Gwen, but it's also really progresses the plot very well too. So very excited to see where this arc goes. And like I said, 5 stars for me. That's pick of the week. So those are all the comics for this week. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Of course, I'll have Comic episode 151 next week. And this Comic Comic Frontline. I'll see you guys later. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later.